This beginning module of Autodesk Inventor 2017 is the Getting Started module, and we will create a simple sketch and then extrude that sketch into a solid. We'll also use the fillet command and the hole wizard command. So we'll start by moving our cursor to the upper left portion of the screen and left click on Start 2D Sketch if you're not already to this point. The default planes that Inventor uses will appear. I'm going to move the cursor over to the XY plane, the front plane, and left click one time once it becomes highlighted. Then you'll have these lines that appear in the screen, and this basically illustrates that we're in the sketch area. These lines will disappear once we exit out of here into the 3D model area. So I'm going to move my cursor up here to the line command. I'm going to left click one time. And we'll start by just drawing out a box. So I'm going to left click, I'm going to drag my cursor over. I'm going to make sure I keep the line perfectly horizontal. I'm going to left click again, drag a line vertically, make sure it's at 90 degrees. I'm going to left click again, I'm going to drag it back. Now what's important here is the dashed line that will appear that tells us we're lined up with the original endpoint, and it is right there. So I'm going to left click one time. I'll move the cursor down here to the beginning endpoint. This time I'm looking for the green dot. That tells me it's a closed profile. I'm going to left click one time. Then I'm going to right click and I'm going to left click on OK. Now to create a solid model, a sketch has to be a closed profile. There can't be any gaps. You can't have a line over an existing line. A straight line that is made up of more than one line will cause a problem. So all lines have to be, if it's a straight line, it has to be one single line. And then there can't be any opens and there can't be any spare lines hanging out in space someplace. So everything has to be a closed profile. And as we go through some more of the videos, we'll gain a better understanding of this. So now I'm going to move the cursor over here to the dimension icon. I'm going to left click once. I'm going to move the cursor down here onto the line. When the line becomes highlighted, I'm going to left click one time and I'm going to drag the cursor down, and attached to the cursor is going to be the dimension. In this case, we want the dimension to be 2. So once I get the dimension placed where I want it, I left click once. The Edit Dimension dialog box comes up. I'm going to enter 2.0 and I'm going to hit Enter on the keyboard, or I can hit this green check mark right here. And that will increase the distance there to 2. And Inventor automatically scales it up. So I'm going to use my mouse wheel and wheel it out a little bit, zoom it out. Now we're still in the dimension command because the dimension icon is highlighted or active. So I'm going to move the cursor over here to the right line. When it becomes highlighted, I'm going to left click one time and I'm going to drag my dimension down here because this is only going to be 0.75. Or 0.25, sorry. So I'm going to left click once. When that Edit Dimension dialog box comes up, I'm going to enter 0.25. I'm going to hit Enter on the keyboard or hit that little green check mark. And then I'm going to right click and I'm going to left click on OK. So right now we have a squashed down rectangle. Now to move this around on the screen, I can pan it by just pushing the mouse wheel down and holding the mouse wheel down and treating it like a button. And I'm going to move it kind of to this position as shown. Then I'm going to go back to the line command. I'm going to left click on the line command. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to left click right on this corner. I'm going to left click once when that green dot shows up. Drag a line upward vertically at 90 degrees. I'm going to left click one time. We'll drag the cursor over, left click one time, left click one time, left click again, and I'm going to come down and click right on this intersection. You don't really get a green dot, but it does know. As long as you get real close, it will snap it to that existing line. And then I'm going to right click, I'm going to left click on OK. So we have our finished sketch. Now we need to do some cleanup. First we need to finish dimensioning it, and then we'll go in and do some editing work here and here. So I'm going to left click on the dimension icon. We'll left click here, here, and we're going to enter 1.75. I'm going to wheel it out just a little bit more. And while the dimension tool is still active, we'll left click on this line, enter 0.25. We'll left click, enter 1.75. And then we'll put a spacing distance between here. I'm going to move the cursor and left click on this line, and a dimension is going to be attached to that line. Well, we just ignore it because we want to dimension to this line. So even though there's a dimension attached to the cursor from the first click, we just ignore that. We move the cursor over here to the second line, left click again, and now Inventor knows that we want to create a dimension between these two lines. This will always also be 0.25. Then we'll right click, left click on OK. Now we have some housekeeping to do down here. Remember I said that the profile has to be open all the way through on the inside. It has to be a closed profile. There can't be any gaps, and you can't have a line over a line, and you can't have a single line or double lines making up what a single line could. So I'm going to wheel in here just a little bit. So I have a couple problems. For starters, our sketch is not open through the inside. I've got this line here in the way. So I'm going to move the cursor up here. I'm going to left click on trim. If you use trim and other software packages such as AutoCAD, you have to specify the fence and these kind of things. With Autodesk Inventor, you just move the cursor over the part you want to get rid of, and Autodesk Inventor will guess. Right there, it's dashed lines means that's what's going to be trimmed. That's what I want trimmed, so I'm going to left click one time. And that's as easy as it is to use the trim function. Pretty basic. So I'm going to right click, left click on OK. Now one last item is I've got two lines making up a single line where a single line should be. I've got a little short line down here, and then I got a taller line up here. I want to get rid of this short line and then extend the taller line. So I'm going to move the cursor over the short line. When it becomes highlighted, I'm going to right click one time. I'm going to left click on delete. Then we'll go up here to the extend command. Works very similar to the trim command. I'm going to left click on extend, and Inventor will try and guess which way you want to extend. If I move the cursor up here to the top, it wants to extend the line upward. If I move the cursor down here to the bottom, it wants to extend the line down. This is the direction I want to extend, so I'm going to left click one time. Then I'll right click, left click on OK. And now this is all one single line. Now I'm going to wheel out. I'm going to right click, left click on Finish 2D Sketch. Inventor zooms it in, so I'm going to wheel it out a little bit more, and I'll pan it down. Now I'm ready to extrude this. I'm going to move my cursor over here to the extrude icon. Notice that the tools have changed now. We're not in the sketch area anymore. We're in the 3D model area. I'm going to right click on extrude. And I'm going to come over and just move my cursor over here. And most of the time it'll find it without even have to select it. And that's the case here. So I'm just going to take the default one, and I'm going to left click on OK. And we now have a solid. Now we'll do some cleanup work here. Let's add a fillet. And if you've used AutoCAD before, fillets typically meant you would left click on this line and then this line. Well, in Inventor, you left click on these edges. So I'll move my cursor up to the fillet command. I'm going to left click one time. And this doesn't look like an area where you could enter any kind of dimension, but it really is. You just highlight it. We're going to enter 0.5. We want a 0.5 radius. Then I'm going to drag this box out of the way. I'm going to move my cursor over here to this edge. I'm going to left click one time. I'm going to left click one time. And then I'll move the cursor over. And if I float the cursor back here, it'll even find that edge without having to rotate the part around. Left click one time. And then we'll move the cursor back, or the dialog box back. We'll left click on OK. So now we've got some rounded edges. Kind of dresses the part up a little bit. Now I'm going to move the cursor over this lower surface and I'm going to create a sketch here. And the way I do that is just move my cursor over it. When it becomes highlighted, I right click one time and I left click on New Sketch. Now Inventor rotates the part up, and that's fine if you want to do that. If you want it back where it was, you simply right click and say Previous View. I'm going to leave it like that for right now. So we're going to put a circle on here and then use an extrude cut to cut a hole in the part. So I'm going to left click on Circle. I'm going to move the cursor down here to the outside edge of this fillet. I'm going to wait there about a second and eventually the center radius will show up. I'm going to left click on that when you see that green dot and we'll drag a circle out. Then I'll right click, left click on OK. Then I'm going to left click on Dimension, left click on the edge of the circle, not the center, enter 0.5. Then I'm going to right click, left click on OK, right click again, finish 2D sketch. Then we'll go up here to extrude. And right now it wants to extrude a pin from this circle. I want it to cut. So I'm going to left click on the cut icon. Inventor automatically changes the direction of the extrusion, so now that the only way it will cut is if it's going the other way, and then left click on OK. Now if we want to see what this looks like, we use the free orbit icon or rotate icon, and we just push the mouse wheel down. We have to left click inside that white circle. This white circle appears around the part. Left click anywhere inside and just hold the left mouse button down. You can drag the part around and see if that is kind of what we had in mind for an extruded cut. When you're done admiring the part, you right click, this pop-up menu comes up and you left click on OK. Then we'll move our cursor up to the upper surface. I'm going to right click, I'm going to left click on New Sketch. I'm going to scroll it down, pan it down by holding the mouse wheel down and pushing down, push the mouse wheel down and pull the part down. I'm going to left click on Point. I'm going to move the cursor over here to the very edge. Once that center appears, I'm going to left click. Then we'll right click, OK. Right click, Finish Sketch. Now we're going to use the Hole Wizard. We're going to left click on Hole. We're going to use the counter bore, and then we'll enter in some information here. So for the top dimension, we're going to enter 0.5. For the next dimension down, we'll enter 0.125. The third dimension down, we'll enter 0.5. And the last dimension we'll use 0.25. Then we need to move our cursor out of the way and left click on the point itself. Left click one time and then we left click on OK, and we'll use the free orbit command. We're going to left click inside the circle and we have a nice counter bore in that very top surface. Then we'll right click, left click on OK. Then we get ready to save the part. We'll go over here to the arrow next to the I for Inventor. We'll left click on that. We can do a Save As. And then we can just save that in pretty much any place we'd like. Put that as Part 2, hit Save. And the part is now saved as Part 2. And this concludes this module of Inventor. And for the getting started,